This series of videos is about the 5 C's of the perfect first date. So in this one we're going to talk about the C of conversation. You want to have a date that maximizes conversational opportunities. This is the main reason why movie dates are really bad. Let's say you've only known each other for a half hour, or maybe your friend set you up, and you go to see a movie. You're sitting in the dark for 2 hours with another person. There's very, very little opportunity to connect emotionally because you can't converse. You're just passively observing some event. The same goes for a rock concert where the volume is very loud, or a classical concert, or some other passive observer event that prohibits conversation, either because you can't hear each other very well or because it would be rude in those circumstances to talk. Stay away from those type of date activities for your first date. For your first date, you want to have an environment that encourages you to open up and your partner to open up, and for you guys to be able to learn more about each other and to connect in that way. The easiest way to connect is through conversation. So if you're not letting that channel come through, not taking advantage of conversation, it's going to be really, really hard to get to know somebody better and to decide whether you want to have a subsequent date. I've seen situations where you might have a couple get together for a movie date. Movie dates are pretty common, and they don't even know each other at that time, but the first thing that they do is they meet at the movie theater, and then they go watch a movie. They sit in the dark for 2 hours, and then they come out of the movie theater thinking, wow, we just spent 2 hours together, but I don't know a single thing more about you. And it's a pretty awkward situation to be in. So make sure you stay away from those passive observer activities, and you want to optimize and maximize your conversational opportunities. Now, we're talking about the 5 C's of the perfect first date, and this video is about the C of contrast, specifically emotional contrast. In a perfect first date, you're going to have emotional contrast, emotional highs and lows built into that 2, 3, 4 hours. You're going to have different contexts, and what that does is it helps people to feel like they know you better because you're providing a whole lot of variety, a lot of emotional variety. Now think about a situation where you have a conversation about one thing for 3 hours. Like, let's say you talk about your family for 3 hours, or some deep, heavy, serious stuff. You share stories about how you were humiliated as a child, or even maybe a happy story as a child. You can see how if you just keep going in one vein without providing a contrast emotionally, it can get pretty boring. Even if at the beginning it was fun to talk about, over time it all becomes sort of heavy, or it becomes monotonous, the same thing over and over. So you want to provide lots of different highs and lows emotionally. You want to inject some drama into it so that it doesn't feel like this interminable activity that you're doing. A really good example of this, of a good situation that provides emotional contrast built into it, is amusement parks. In Singapore recently, Universal Studios opened up. If you're in Tokyo or someplace with a Disneyland, you can go there, but there are lots of amusement parks all over the place. And what amusement parks do is that you can see how built into that setting are quite a lot of highs and lows, literally, right? So you line up for a roller coaster. The roller coaster might take 30 seconds total, but the lining up will take you half an hour or so, depending on how busy things are. It might even take 3 hours in some places. Now during that time, you can talk and you can connect over deeper topics, but then you get on that roller coaster and suddenly you have a completely different set of feelings, a different set of emotions. And then when you come off that, it's a high. You come off the roller coaster and you're coming off a big high, an adrenaline rush. And then you walk around a bit, maybe get some snacks, some sweets, some ice cream, some cotton candy, make you feel like a kid again, go play some games, and then you get in line for another roller coaster. And you can see that there's quite a lot of variety built into that situation, partly because it forces you into new contexts. So a good first date would replicate that sort of emotional high and low. If you don't want to go to an amusement park, you can do that through conversation by injecting a lot of humor. So having a bit of humor for throwing jokes in there for 10 seconds or so, making her laugh, making yourself laugh, and then saying, wait, no, seriously though, tell me more about whatever serious topic you wanted to talk about. So you might connect over some childhood experience, and it might be a serious topic of conversation. You're getting to know more about her background, and you're sharing part of yours. But then every 2 or 3 minutes, you all crack up in laughter over some joke that you're teasing her or she's teasing you. So there's highs and lows there. You want to make sure that there's some variety so it doesn't get monotonous. So that C is contrast, emotional contrast. My name is David Tien, also known as the Asian Rake. That's R-A-K-E. You can also find me at auradating.com. So this is the totally unedited version of the 5 C's of the Perfect First Date. So this time I want to talk about the C of change, or changing. And this is specifically looking at physical venue changes. You want to make sure that you do a lot of, you make a lot of changes in venue, that you're not in one place for very long. For, I would say, more than an hour and a half is probably too long. Usually people will want to stay in one place, and they'll do a dinner date, for instance, and they'll meet at the place where they go to have dinner. And they set aside 2 hours for dinner. And then at the end of the 2 hours, that's the minimum time for a decent date. So at that point, at the end of the 2 hours, your date might think, okay, I've finished the date. Time to go to the next thing in my schedule. Time to go see my friends, or go back home and do my homework, or something like that. Now, here's how you preempt that. You want to make sure that you're moving early. So move early and often. That's my general principle. Move early and often. So let's say you meet at a lounge, and your date might think, okay, we're going to get some food here. Just get your appetizers there and order 1 drink. At about the 1 hour mark, go to the next place, where you might get main courses and another drink. And then after an hour there, you go to the next place for dessert and more drinks. Now what that does in the constant movement is it provides emotional variety, and what it does through that is provide time distortion. The more places that you go and experience together, the more it feels like you've known each other for a longer time. Whereas if you sit in one place for 3 hours, it'll feel like 3 hours in one place. But if every hour you're going to a new place, a new lounge, a new restaurant, or a new a park or shopping area, it'll feel like you've experienced a lot more together. And that is in itself a bonding experience. And just as far as having fun first dates, it's just pretty boring to stay in one place for more than 2 hours. And especially when you're at the 3rd hour and you're still sitting at the TCC or the coffee shop, it'll be hard then for you to have much, to feel like you've really bonded, because you've just been in one place, and now it's done and you can head home. And that's not a great experience. A good first date is a lot of movement, bouncing from place to place. I like to have the meals segmented like I just suggested, or you can do window shopping together, you can meet at a mall, and the more experiences you have together, the easier it is and quicker the bond that you will make. Also, for the men, if you're leading, so in other words, you tell her the first place to go to meet you at, and then you have in your mind other places to go. As you suggest those places and you sell them, you would say at the first appetizer place, hey, I know this great place with whatever, paella. We should try that, so let's just do appetizers here, and then it's just around the corner, let's go over there. And each time you do something like that, right, then you're at the main course place, and you suggest the dessert place, and so forth. She'll get used to following your lead. And women like men who are leaders, who know what they want and go after it, and can lead people to those destinations. So this is a great principle to keep in mind, especially if you're a man, because it provides time distortion, but for men, more importantly, it shows your male dominance. It shows that you can take leadership and that you're comfortable with it. So make sure that you provide a lot of physical changing in venues, and that you're leading in those from bounce to bounce, from place to place. So, continuing with the series on the 5 C's of the Perfect First Date, this video is about the C of cheap, for lack of a better word. Inexpensive is probably a better one, but I wanted to stick with the C, so cheap. Why is it important for that? This is important for the first date. Later on, as you get to know each other better and you've decided that this is somebody that you would like to continue seeing, then you're perfectly fine just spending as much as you feel like. But the reason why we want to keep the first date relatively inexpensive is for many reasons, one of which is pressure. Some women will feel a lot of social pressure if they find out that the man, or if they notice that the man is spending a lot of money on them. So if on the first date he's putting down a $200 per head dinner, some women might think that they are going to be expected to pay him back in some way at the end of the night, or that he's expecting something in particular, or what it adds unnecessary pressure and formality to the situation, because now we have this dinner that costs a lot more than she's used to. Keep in mind, though, that this is relative. So it's relative to your financial situation. So if you're a billionaire, buying a bottle of Dom Perignon at dinner is not going to be a big deal. And as long as she knows it's not a big deal to you, you're fine. But if she senses that there's any kind of discomfort or any kind of stretching of your finances on that date, or if she gets any inkling that this is not what you normally do when you're hanging out with your buddies, spending that much money, then you're screwed, because you're now injecting all of this pressure. You're putting all this pressure on her. And you're also communicating that you're going to be a provider. So this is going to be a situation where she's going to sit back and really take her time with you. And if that's something that you want, then that's fine. But in most cases, that actually slows down the relationship. It'll take a longer for you to get to know each other better, because now you're evaluating things through a much more high-pressured lens, which is the lens of, is he marriage material, or is he the kind of boyfriend I would want to have 3 years down the road? And considering it's your first date, that's a lot of pressure to deal with. It's much better to just do something that's inexpensive, even if you're a billionaire, inexpensive and fun. That way there won't be any pressure induced with money. Also, you want to keep the investment levels. You need to keep an eye on who's investing what time and effort into the relationship at the beginning especially. So if it feels like to the woman that she doesn't have to do anything, and that she just looks pretty and shows up, and you already are won over by her, then it's going to be hard for you to create a chase dynamic where she feels like she needs to work to earn your approval or your affection. And then it becomes skewed to the man always trying to win her affection, her approval, which is actually the typical way things are done in traditional societies in the 20th century. And that power dynamic is always to the advantage of the female. So if you're a woman and you want to make a man just buy you lots of stuff, then heck, yeah, pressure him to get you the most expensive dinner you can. But that's generally not a healthy relationship situation. So what are some cheap, inexpensive dates examples you could have? Well, there are plenty of lounges that are within most men's budget in their 20s. You could get just a cocktail each and some appetizers. You could do a coffee date to start and then bounce to a dessert place. And coffee and dessert can never be really that much money. Don't do a first date at a really formal restaurant, like one of those rooftop revolving restaurant type of deals. Those are really romantic, and that's something that you want to reserve for later. Don't bring out all the big guns on the first date. It's sort of like giving the girl a diamond ring on the first date. Not a great move. You need somewhere to move up. So start casual, start light, start with no pressure, and keep the investment levels even. Maybe you get the coffee, she gets the dessert, then you get the cocktails at the next place. Just keep that dynamic going so that you're equals, and you can both evaluate each other at an equal level. Whether I want to continue this or not, it'll be a lot easier at that point. Even if you don't want to continue it, you can continue being friends because you started off acting like friends on an equal level. So remember, for the first date, keep things relatively pressure-free, and you can do that by keeping the budget down and keeping it inexpensive or cheap. Hey, welcome. My name is David Tien, also known as the Asian Rake, R-A-K-E. You can also find me at auradating.com. Continuing on the series of the 5 C's of the Perfect First Date, this video is about the C of convenience, or convenient. And it's mainly about logistics. That is, smooth logistics leads to smooth escalation. So this means that you have places planned, you know exactly where you're going and how you're going to get there. The best way to do this is to plan backwards. So think about, in your ideal world, where that first date will end. Maybe you'd like to have it end at your apartment, in your bedroom, or maybe you'd like to have it end, I know a lot of Singaporean guys still live with their mom and dad, even in their 30s. So maybe home is not the ideal situation. Maybe you want to end in your car. A lot of guys go to like Mount Faber or something, some car park with a romantic view, and that's where they want to end up. Well, wherever it is that you want to end up, first you have to know where your goal is. You have to know where your destination is. Once you know where that destination is, you should then draw concentric circles around that destination and work from outside in. Ideally, you would just start and end in that location, but often that's not going to happen. You might encounter resistance to that idea, that suggestion. And for all you know, the girl could turn out to be a nut job and you don't want to bring her back anyway. So you want to start relatively close and start moving in towards your location, to your final location. If the girl lives far away, you want her to meet you halfway, or better yet, even more towards your starting point. I know a lot of guys think they're being chivalrous by driving way out of their way. Let's say they live out in Jurong West on the other side of Singapore, and they drive up to East Coast to pick her up and then bring her back. And then because you drive all the way out there, you end up eating on East Coast. It's going to be really hard for you to bring her, eventually move it back to your final destination. So you want to get her to meet you halfway and then start moving closer and closer towards your place. Ideally, every man will have scouted out his location. It's not that hard at all. So take a walk around the blocks around your final destination. Know what the good date spots are in that area, where the ice cream places are, the cafes, the restaurants and lounges, the arcades, the movie theaters for later. Just knowing where all the different things are will help you in planning out where you're going to go next. So if you start out, let's say, 3 concentric circles away from your final destination as your first date, first meeting spot, about half hour into that, while you're there, you suggest the next place you're going to move, which is a little bit closer to your destination, the main course place, and then from there you can move then to the dessert place, let's say. And let's say then that she resists that main course place because let's say the main course place you picked was Indian food, and she doesn't like Indian food, or maybe she just had a bad bout of Indian food poisoning or something. So because you have scouted out that whole location and you've plotted all the different places at each level of concentric circles, you know, hey, there's a plan B, a really great Thai restaurant going this way, but it's still heading closer to your house. And you can start telling her about the Thai restaurant early on. So seed it early, a half hour, or even as soon as you get there, and then you seed it early, and then you can refer to it a little bit. You just tell her about it, and when you first think of it, five minutes in or a half an hour into your first into that location, and then and then when it comes time to move, you just say, hey, remember that place I was telling you about? Let's go check it out. And then it's a lot more natural of a transition. So you want to make sure that everything's moving towards your final destination, not away from, especially. And be aware of how much time and effort you're putting into it, into that first date, versus how much time and effort she's putting into it. So don't go all the way across town, spending 40 minutes to pick her up. It'd be easier if she spent 20 minutes getting to the middle and you spent 20 minutes meeting her there. That would keep things more even keel, because psychologically, the more time and effort you put into it, the more you value it. And it's very easy for people to overvalue a relationship before it's even started, just because of all the time and effort they've already put into it. So know your own psychology and be smart about it, keep it in control, and start planning the the smoothest ways of getting back to your final destination. So that's about convenience. Make sure it's convenient for you. Another way to think about it is, if you're worried that you're going to be too invested in this relationship that hasn't even started, maybe because you think you're obsessing over her like she's your crush from a long time ago and you're finally able to get a date with her. If you want to keep your cool and not be too needy, you could plan something that is a date that will include activities that you would need to do anyway. That way, if things don't go well, you're still getting some things completed that you would have needed to do anyway. So let's say you needed to go to the post office, you needed to swing by the Gucci or whatever, Zara, to pick up some clothes or something like that, and then you wanted to get some pearl milk tea or something. You can do all of those things that are going to please you and be things that you wanted to do anyway, and she can come along for it. And in terms of convenience, that's very, very convenient for you, and it'll help control how much neediness, how much dependence you put on her, or over-dependence on that relationship that hasn't even started. So it's a good way to control your neediness. Okay, so that's the C of convenience. Smooth escalation. Smooth logistics leads to smooth escalation. So plan everything out smoothly, and things should go smoothly.